couple weeks ago, I dug up my garden to prepare for planting. I grabbed my shovel and my hoe, and I dug out the weeds that were starting to take root. Then I sorted through the compost. You can come on over here and you can see compost is pretty gross. Come on over here and look. It's kind of icky. It's all of the organic waste from our household over the past couple months. And it is hard work breaking up these clumps of soil. But I'll let you in on a little secret. For me, digging up the garden is a form of therapy. This is my anger management program. Remember Mr. Rogers' song? What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could bite? When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong and nothing you do seems very right. Well, this is what I do with the mad that I feel. I work it all into the dirt. Last year, I had a lot to be angry about. I was angry about what happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. I was angry about what happened to the protesters. I was angry about police brutality and the presidential invasion on St. John's Episcopal Church. I was angry about the growing white Christian nationalism. And all of that got worked into the garden last year. And I was angry about what was happening with the pandemic. Certain leaders lying about the virus or downplaying its severity. All the conspiracy theories and disinformation. This year, though, when I worked the shovel and the hoe, I thought about the millions of people who got sick, the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who died. I thought about all of the families who are in mourning. It didn't have to be this bad, especially in communities of color that have been deliberately under-resourced in healthcare infrastructure for decades. All of this got worked into the soil as well. I also have to admit, my personal anger towards certain people in my life is somewhere in this garden as well. My frustration, the mad that I feel, all of that is somewhere in this soil. One of the things that I've come to appreciate about Jesus' parables is the way he uses imagery from his agrarian culture to teach spiritual truths. Like the parable of the fruitless tree in Luke chapter 13, verses 1 to 9. While talking to the crowds, he gets into a discussion about why bad things happen to people. Apparently, some of them think that misfortune and accidents are a result of sin, even when it's obvious that sometimes accidents just happen, or sometimes people die because of political violence through no fault of their own. So Jesus tells them this parable about a king who wants to cut down a tree because it won't bear fruit. He is judge and jury over this tree and is ready to sentence it to death. The gardener, however, pleads with him, just give it one more year. He tells the king that he'll dig around the soil and he'll put fertilizer, manure, around the tree. Just like I do with my garden. just like Jesus' listeners did with their plots of soil and their vineyards. We might say that Jesus is like that gardener, pleading with us to relent from our harsh judgments against people and writing them off as unworthy. His parable challenges me, challenges the church to rethink our approach to the people and the problems that frustrate us. When I dug through this soil last year, it occurred to me that some of the things that I was angry about were no longer a problem for me. And the same thing happened this year. Those things don't go away. All of that anger and grief is still in the soil. But some of the people who ticked me off have shifted in their approach to me. Because, frankly, I shifted in my approach to them. So even though all of that grief and anger is in the soil, that compost is working in ways that I'm not always seeing. It becomes the fertilizer for the seeds and the plants that I put in the ground. So for example, this squash is going to feed me and my family. It's going to provide us the nutrition that we need in our lives. All of the things that are worked into the soil, God is taking them and transforming that rotting, smelly stuff from the compost into food that will sustain my family. The anger that I felt last year about white Christian nationalism fueled my wanting to co-found a group called the Clergy Emergency League that helps pastors to engage in prophetic ministry in their congregations. Now we have over 2,500 clergy in this network, a fruitful harvest. So the gardener in this parable is hoping that we will see possibility instead of hopelessness. Now we don't know the ending of the parable. It leaves us with questions. Will the king listen to the wisdom of the gardener and learn patience? Will he trust the gardener? Or will he insist on his own way and insist that the tree be chopped down? You know, the tree wasn't dying. It just wasn't getting the nutrients that it needed to produce fruit. If the king chops it down, he'll lose the chance for the fruit to appear. And what a lost opportunity that would be. Jesus is urging us to reconsider our approach, our attitude, our mindset. The gardener is standing there with the shovel and the hoe, inviting us to dig in, inviting us to engage in that hard work that can lead to transformation, to fruitfulness. As I was digging through the soil, turning it over, turning all of these things over in my mind, I remembered a line from a hymn called "Come Ye Disconsolate." And it goes like this. Earth has no sorrow that hand cannot heal. I invite you to put your hands in some soil and work your grief and your anger into the dirt. I invite you to reconnect with the ground of all being, the ground that God created. If you don't have a garden, maybe you have a small yard where you can just dig into the soil and plant some flowers or vegetables. If you don't have a yard, maybe you have a window where you can place a pot of soil and plant some seeds. If you don't have a place to plant some seeds, maybe find a nearby park where you can put your feet on the ground. Maybe even sit on the ground and root yourself into the earth. And there you can give your grief and your anger over to the soil. Allow the gardener to compost that mad that you feel, your frustration, your deep sadness. Earth has no sorrow that heaven